Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking the story behind literally one of humanity's greatest historical triumphs. I mean, just imagine it, reaching out across the dark, freezing void of space, millions of miles away, and for the very first time in human history, opening your eyes on an entirely alien world. It's the kind of moment that absolutely, fundamentally shifted our entire understanding of our place in the universe. So it brings up a really profound question. What did humanity's first glimpse of another planet's surface actually look like? Think about the unbelievably high stakes of that exact moment. We're not talking about our modern era of instant digital uploads or supercomputers in our pockets. No, we're talking about scientists and engineers who spent years planning, building, and launching a machine into the absolute unknown. Using slide rules and early room-sized computers, they had done all the complex orbital math. They built the hardware. But honestly, until that visual data actually comes back, it's all just theory. How do you even process that reality when it finally hits? Okay, let's dive into this. Touchdown on the Red Planet. The morning of July 20, 1976. I want you to transport yourself directly back in time to the tense, electric atmosphere of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory that morning. Picture it. The room is packed. It's early. Teams are huddled tightly around their consoles, just sweating it out through this agonizing silence and static, waiting to hear if their spacecraft, the Viking 1 lander, actually survived a truly harrowing journey. And then, suddenly, the static breaks. Touchdown! We have touchdown! And man, at those words, Mission Control just absolutely erupted. The sheer relief and joy in that room must have been completely overwhelming. They literally just found out that Viking 1 survived its perilous descent through that incredibly thin Martian atmosphere. It didn't burn up, it didn't crash, it was just sitting there, safely, on the surface of Mars. Looking at how the morning played out, the suspense is almost tangible. First, you have that terrifying descent. Then, boom, at exactly 5:12 a.m. Pacific time, touchdown is confirmed. Everyone's going wild. But the mission wasn't just to land, right? It was to look. And the crazy part, that first image doesn't even begin to appear for another 40 minutes. Why? Well, Mars is millions of miles away. It took 19 minutes just for a light-speed radio signal to travel from Mars to Earth. Throw in the time needed to process that super primitive data with 1970s tech, and yeah, you get 40 agonizing minutes of waiting. That is a massive, suspenseful pause between knowing your machine survived and actually knowing if its cameras worked well enough to phone home. Which brings us to our next chapter, a sliver of electronic magic. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the psychological tension in that room shifted instantly. It went from the sheer relief of surviving the landing to this desperate, quiet demand for visual confirmation. They needed to see Mars with their own eyes to truly believe it. But remember, this wasn't an iPhone snapping a quick panoramic shot. Viking used a scanning photometer. The image formed on their monitors agonizingly slowly. I'm talking line by vertical line from left to right. It operated kind of like a primitive fax machine, sweeping back and forth. They literally had to sit there and watch an alien landscape reveal itself one tiny strip of pixels at a time. Imagine being Dr. Thomas Much for a second. He was the leader of the Viking lander imaging team. You were sitting in mission control literally on the absolute edge of your seat, staring intently at a completely black screen. You know that your entire life's work is either about to materialize right in front of you or just remain hidden in the dark forever. The anticipation is it's off the charts. And Dr. Much beautifully captured the immense, profound reverence of that exact moment. Let me read you his words. I studied the black screen, waiting for that narrow strip that will signal the first few lines of the first picture, and it appeared. A sliver of electronic magic, areas of brightness and darkness. The picture begins to fill the screen. Rocks and sand are visible. And, finally, at the far right, one of the spacecraft footpads, a symbolic artifact that stamps our accomplishment with the sign of reality. Time and time again, I repeat, it's incredible. Seriously, just let the emotional weight of that sink in for a second. They are looking at alien rocks, alien sand, and right there on the edge, the footpad of their own spacecraft, proving that this was real. They had actually touched Mars. Let's zoom out a bit. The Viking mission legacy. Let's move to and see how this builds, because this accomplishment was obviously far larger than just one camera on a single morning. We're actually talking about an entire robotic fleet sent to the Red Planet. Viking 1 was the first robot to successfully explore the surface, but Actually, it had a twin. Viking 2 joined it just 6 weeks later, touching down in an entirely different region of Mars to expand their data collection. And to make this whole extraordinary architectural feat work, 2 mission orbiters hovered high above. These orbiters were absolutely vital. They safely delivered the landers, they kept collecting scientific data from space, and they acted as the critical communication relays to beam all of this historic information all the way back across the solar system to Earth. The whole shebang worked perfectly. So, the crucial point is the timing of all this. Today, July 20, 2026, marks a massive, massive milestone. It is exactly 50 years since that monumental achievement. It's been an entire half-century since humanity first peered through a robotic lens right onto the dusty surface of Mars. It really is the perfect moment to bridge the incredible, audacious ambition of our past with the super advanced exploration we're doing right now. And that leads us to the ultimate purpose of this explainer, and honestly, the mission itself. You see, the Viking program wasn't just some glorified photography mission. No way. It was our very first real step in a much grander quest, the ongoing search for signs of life in our solar system. That 50-year legacy completely paved the way for all the modern rovers and mind-blowing discoveries that followed. So, as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with this one thought to chew on. Knowing the absolutely incredible boundaries we pushed to get that very first sliver of electronic magic half a century ago, what astounding discoveries are waiting for us in the next 50 years? Keep that curiosity alive, folks. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey.